From Am I the A-hole 2 days ago? Am I the a-hole for cancelling the family vacation because my husband gave our kids tickets to his widowed cousin's kids? A classic case of a dad thinking he's a hero when really he's just become a villain. I'm a 33 female, and my husband Chris, who's 36, planned a 1-week vacation to an out-of-state ski resort with our 2 kids. His cousin, Martin, who's 38, lost his wife to cancer 6 months ago. She left behind 2 kids, nearly the same age as my kids, 6 and 9. My husband is devastated for his best friend's loss. They're so close that he sees him as a friend. Understandably so. He tries to help Martin and the kids, but in my opinion, he's been doing a little too much for them lately. He suggested we take Martin's kids with us to the resort to get their mind off the grief a bit. I apologized and said it wouldn't really work since we barely have budget to cover for our kids. He insisted then, trying to offer a compromise, but I still said it wouldn't work. He was obviously ticked off, but dropped it eventually. Now remember, class, when you discuss something with your partner and it doesn't go exactly how you want, what do? You go behind their back. Yes, very well done. You're all gonna make a future divorce lawyer very happy. 2 days before the trip, I found out that my husband booked 2 tickets for Martin's kids instead of our own kids. I was the one paying, but he insisted on handling the booking and making reservations. I was stunned. I called him out on it, and he apologetically talked about how Martin needs some alone time away from the kids, how the kids need a breather, and how they need this vacation more than our kids do. Bro, does this man just hate his own kids or something? Children, please understand, it's not because your cousins are currently going through trauma, it's because I hate you. Oh, no, wait, sorry, that meant to be the other way around. I flipped out at him, asking if he seriously is okay with prioritizing an other person's kids over his own. He said it wasn't about priorities, but doing what's needed to help those kids out. I asked him how his own kids will react once they find out, but he said, "I'm sure they'll understand." I said no, and decided to cancel the vacation altogether. Well, he freaked out on me, saying I can't do that and make him look small in front of his cousin and family since they praised him for this nice gesture. I refused to negotiate it, but he called me horribly selfish and cruel towards grieving kids, and said that he'll make sure our own kids know how I'm behaving towards the other kids by robbing them of the fun they so much need and deserve. We haven't been talking, and he's so ticked off and keeps throwing a fit after a fit about it, claiming I ruined it for everybody when I cancelled. I do feel bad for the kids, I do, but I don't think what he did was right. Am I the a-hole for cancelling? If this was a relationship where they had merged accounts, I'd feel this argument doesn't hold any merit. But of course, if they did have merged accounts, why the hell would she even state it like this? So clearly, she's paying with her own money. Which, I mean, that alone gives you absolute validation to completely end this trip the moment you feel it's not worth your money. Like, he's essentially making you pay to babysit someone else's kids on your vacation. Oh, and you can argue, oh, but I'm sure he'd encourage her to enjoy her time as well. But okay, yeah, you tell someone to just enjoy themselves when they constantly have that side pressure within themselves, that subtle feeling that they have to be responsible for the safety and well-being of someone else's kids who are going through grief. What a lovely environment to go on holidays in. Opie here does think, though, she could be the a-hole for this reason, cancelling the entire vacation, making her husband feel humiliated after he promised Martin and the family. And sure, yes, let's go down that typical road of your feelings are valid, blah blah blah. But his feelings were validated, way earlier, like before even going ahead to actually make the booking. You validated his feelings by saying, okay, I understand where you're coming from, but we both can't afford it, and also this is for our family. He lost all right to go back onto the whole, well, my feelings weren't considered the moment he did this behind your back. Top comment giving a great suggestion. Tell your husband to stay home with his cousin's kids while you take your kids on the vacation. Don't cancel your plans on account of your husband's need to feel like the hero. He is free to have his cousin's kids for that week at your home, so his cousin can have some alone time, and you can go away on your planned vacation with your children. Everybody wins. Nata. Yeah, and as this bootlicker below them says, this is gold. It is actually a compromise. If the husband's true goal is to give everyone a breather, this accomplishes said goal beautifully. No, but it doesn't, see, because he doesn't get to go on vacation himself. He wants to be the hero and get the privileges. See, this doesn't work. It's clearly unfair. Some people, of course, really just diving down the rabbit hole of conspiracy here. Hate to ask this, but is it possible your husband's drive to help these kids above his own is because they are his own? Yes, clearly this is a case that he has actually been sleeping with his best friend's wife. To be fair, that does seem to happen a lot on the Reddit internet. Now, despite many natas, there's actually quite a few people who think this sucks for everyone. Reading the one that seems to have the most actual thought. I agree that your husband is acting insane, but he's obviously going through something, and all I hear from either of you is, no, we're doing it my way. You guys should have found a compromise somewhere, somehow. You could have canceled the trip and booked an Airbnb somewhere or something cheaper that you could bring the two cousins along for. Like, I get that's not the vacation that you wanted or planned, but your family is going through something. Your husband is going through something. And sometimes family and marriage include sacrifices. You can go skiing next year, and you can be the one paying for it. You're not wrong to want to go skiing or being furious with your husband about this, but you're both wrong for the way you're treating each other and your unwillingness to compromise. And this is where a lot of the comments are getting a bit divisive. As someone says here, replying to that, well, he didn't offer any compromises and he deceived her, but we see here that he insisted then tried offering compromises, but I still said it wouldn't work. What were those compromises? Well, unfortunately, the OP hasn't even made any comments down below to further explain this, which is what has made a lot of people think this is a bit sus. I mean, surely those compromises deserve to be heard by all of us. Maybe he was actually offering some very legitimate offers, such as what people are suggesting here, where, hey, maybe cancel skiing, go on a cheaper trip altogether. Because, yeah, I can agree to the fact that, okay, they're good friends, they're also your family. They are your family now too. Gotta have to agree that it is kind of snobbyish on her end to refuse to do any sort of leeway to help out these kids going through grief. They lost their mother, for goodness sake. They are the same age as your own kids. Would you, person watching this video, not feel like crawling out of your grave and slapping someone who was refusing to do just a little thing? Okay, maybe not a little thing, but you get my point. Just a slight going out of their way to help out their, your children going through a very tough time. Anyway, with that thought, let's move on to the next story. Really rambled on that one. This next story also came about 3 days ago and received some back and forth, which you can enjoy down below. But it starts with, am I the a-hole for asking my wife to pay her fair share? So I'm a 39-year-old male. I've been married to my wife Stacy, who's 30, for 5 years, and we have 2 children together. I also share three children with my ex-wife Hannah, who's 37. Sir, may I introduce you to condoms? Ever since Stacy and I got together, she has made it very clear to me that my 3 children are mine and Hannah's responsibility, not hers. This has worked out well so far, but lately it has been taking a toll on me. Now, I pay Hannah child support every month. Ever since Stacy had our first child, she has demanded that I give her the same amount of money each month to keep things fair. In addition, I have to pay for half of our joint household expenses, i.e. mortgage, utilities, and food, and my own car. Stacy pays for the majority of expenses for our children. So I'm immediately noticing Stacy's slight inability to count here. How many children does he have with Hannah? We got 1, 2, 3. So either one of Stacy's kids is very big. Don't think 2 equates to 3. But anyway, let's move on. Here lies the problem. Stacy has never taken issues with having to care for mine and Hannah's children. She picks them up from school, takes them to activities, and ensures they have everything they need. However, anytime she purchases anything for them, she immediately sends me a Venmo request and demands I cover all expenses related to children that are not hers. We recently went on a family vacation, and she demanded that I pay for half of the portion of our children and all of the portion for Hannah's. I told her that all these expenses are taking a hit in my finances, and she didn't seem to care. She reiterated that my children are my responsibility. Yeah, how dare she say that? That very legitimate point. Only there was something out there to warn this man of what life is like when you have too many children that you can't afford, like rom-coms, books, various media out there that are about this sort of situation. To add insult to injury, she recently started contributing money to college funds for her kids, while Hannah and I have nothing saved for our kids' college. Hannah found out and asked that I start funds for our kids. When I talked with Stacy about this, she said this was fine, but I had to put the same amount of money in the funds she has set up for our kids. I told Stacy I need her to start paying her fair share of expenses around our household. I cannot afford to pay child support, household expenses, and all these miscellaneous expenses that come up for my kids. It wouldn't hurt her financially, as she makes more than me and could easily spare some money. Stacy blew up and took our children to her parents' house, and I haven't heard from her in a day and a half. Like, am I the a-hole for demanding that she pay her fair share? Now, before I make any personal points, let's just go straight to the comments here. The biggest comment here highlighting the fact that, okay, it sounds like, based on how you've compared things here, that she pays for half of the household expenses and the majority of the expenses related to your shared children. That makes you an a-hole. A fair rebuttal though, but does Stacy pay those expenses with the child support from her husband? Because if so, that doesn't make him an a-hole. Which is a valid point. If anything, that just points out that Stacy's not actually paying for more expenses, she's just using the money that he pays for to pay for the expenses. But this comment dives nicely deeper into it, it really just gets in there. I'm guessing that she uses that child support to help with those costs, yes. Like, it honestly sounds kind of like a way to force him to actually contribute financially to his own kids, because he doesn't seem willing to do it otherwise. Oh, because she makes more. So yeah, he's paying child support, aka contributing financially to the children he lives with. And he's still an a-hole because he's expecting Stacy to take care of their kids and his kids with his ex, 5 in all, with all of the time and mental load that requires, in addition to having a regular job. Pay for half of their household, half-ish of their own kids, and some portion of his kids with his ex, including vacations and whatever daily costs that come up with them. Also contribute all of the funds to their kids' college funds, and let him only contribute to 3 of his 5 kids' college funds. And accept this all as fair. I mean, Stacy, however, should probably be paying more of the mortgage if she's making nearly double what he is making, but his expectations still make him an a-hole. On the other end of the spectrum, why are you paying your current wife child support? That makes no sense. Surely your new wife knows that's petty as hell, so you're giving her money to make this fair and pay for half of everything, and paying everything for your 3 kids when they visit. This feels like she is double dipping. But then one argues, okay, no, that's just, as we brought up earlier, she's not double dipping, she's more so just ensuring he's actually paying for their kids as well. But another argues, if anything, OP is subsidizing his wife's life right now. He pays half of everything else in their household, yet his wife makes double what he does. It sounds like he pays half of what it costs to raise their children with his child support, while again, making half of what his wife does. Like, how is that fair? Marriage isn't about everything being 50-50, it's about loving someone, wanting to make a fair household where both partners can succeed. And look, I do have to sort of agree with that end part there. Only so much on the notion of, if we're gonna argue with the fact that, okay, OP, mate, I know hindsight's 20/20, but you really should have thought about the fact whether or not you could actually afford to have so many kids. But then also, Stacy, sweetie, honestly think it was a smart idea to get in a relationship with a man who has 3 children to financially be responsible for, to pursue 2 kids with this man, and now to be shocked and disgusted that he's suddenly pointing out the fact that he can't financially handle all this? It kind of brings me to want to think that everyone does suck here. Like, at the end of the day, she's actually kind of putting in a bit more effort than she needs to, especially with being there for all the kids, not just her own. Like, good on you, that's great. And you do have to understand her situation. She's a woman who earns more in this relationship. She probably has that fear that he's going to try and make her become the breadwinner, not just because she earns more, but so he doesn't have to pay for everything as much as he kind of is meant to as a partner. So I don't know, what do you think? Let me know down below. This one's a bit of a complicated one, I think. And we'll move on to the next story. Now, our next story, I actually got to give a shout out here to Raven Illusion, or Dreams and Wi-Fi, whichever one you want to be called. Thank you for the story suggestion. It's a few days old, but it's an interesting back and forth between 2 mothers. It's a story that began 3 days ago with a mother simply asking if she's the a-hole for giving her daughter a haircut. And yes, it sounds so innocent. It really is not. So I was married to a man who I had a daughter with. Now, he is married to Jessie. Jessie is 10 years younger, has no children of her own, and is one of those deal with all problems with love, and thinks when a child is misbehaving, it's their way of asking for help. My daughter lives with my ex-husband and Jessie the majority of the time, and then I get her every other weekend. Can you already tell it just reeks of that Nintendo Switch, Mum, we read a story about like a week or so ago? Well, I got a call from my daughter's, she's now 11, school a week and a half ago, that she had issues with some boys in her class. Because of this, she had to leave school early and was not allowed to come back until the next week. The incident happened on a Wednesday. She wasn't allowed back that Thursday or Friday. Well, I spoke to the guidance counselor and I talked to my daughter on the phone, and I told her that sort of behavior was unacceptable and she was going to be punished for it. Jessie was already on her way to pick her up. I normally prefer not to talk to Jessie for personal reasons. But on her way home, I told her under no uncertain terms was my daughter allowed to have any privileges, that I wanted her to understand that her behavior was not going to be tolerated. Jessie told me she and my ex-husband had already spoken to my daughter, and they both agreed that she was going to lose her screen time and social privileges until the end of the week, and then that was going to be it. So I clarified she was going to be punished for 2.5 days and then be allowed to do all of the fun things she wanted to over the weekend? Jessie said yes. I said she should be grounded at least that entire week and the week after. Well, Jessie got annoyed with me and told me that I could punish my daughter the way I chose when it was my visitation. And that would end up being a very bad choice of words. Well, that weekend, my daughter had an appointment to get her hair cut, and apparently she got permission from her father to dye the tips of her hair for her Halloween costume, the same type of hairstyle Jessie happens to have. I told my ex-husband that I didn't think it was appropriate for her to still be getting her hair done, but it was done anyway. Well, it was my visitation time today. On top of having an attitude problem, she still wouldn't say that she was sorry about the issue with those boys. She kept saying they deserved it, and she hadn't told them she was sorry and wasn't going to. I took her into the bathroom and I gave her a straight haircut under the chin. She was crying and kicking, but I told her that when she began acting right, she could get her hair the way she wanted it. She called her father crying and saying she wanted him to pick her up. He immediately ran over and began screaming at me and took our daughter back to his house, which is against the visitation agreement, but okay. Now he's texting me telling me our daughter doesn't want to come over my house anymore. I said of course she doesn't, because I actually hold her accountable for her actions and punish her for things she's done. Am I the a-hole for giving my daughter a haircut? It's amazing how much an abusive woman can desensitize what is truly an abusive moment. So for more info about the whole altercation at the school, mother alleges that the boys were bothering her and the teacher dealt with it. But allegedly, the daughter decided to take it upon herself, disobey her teacher, and take it upon herself to deal with it herself afterwards. As Science is My God here says, anyone want to guess the boys got a fistful of response for acting inappropriately with her? Of course, that is us assuming the situation. Hey, maybe this daughter is actually just as physically abusive as this mother can be herself. What if it was a case of kids just being a little bit bratty? She's someone who isn't very good at regulating her emotions because she has a bully of a mother. So when she finally has someone that agitates her to respond in action, teacher comes by, makes her feel unfulfilled. She still has this energy she needs to just let out on someone, make someone else feel as bullied as she gets from her mother. Yes, those boys were a good target. Of course, ironically, that's me also just projecting and assuming things here as well. But anyway, a day after that, we get another throwaway account, this time from the stepmother's perspective. So my stepdaughter's mother cut her hair against her will. I'm doing this on a throwaway because I know my husband's ex is on Reddit a lot, and she knows my other account, but I just need some objective advice from people who don't know me or her. I'm 27 female. My husband is 35, and my stepdaughter is 12. My husband's ex-wife is 37. My husband was married to his ex for 8 years. She was abusive and controlling. Because of this, my husband and I have primary physical and legal custody of my stepdaughter, Evie. Her mother sees her Friday afternoon until Sunday morning. 2 hours after she arrived at her mother's house yesterday, Evie called my husband, sobbing so hysterically she could barely speak. She just showed us her hair. Her mother cut her hair unevenly from mid-back length to under her ears. It looked like she used a pair of dull kitchen scissors. Her ends were completely split and frayed. There were big chunks missing from certain parts, and other parts were still long. Her mother did this as punishment for something my stepdaughter did weeks ago. Boys at school were bullying her over her chest size, and the teacher basically just told them to stop. Oh, look at that. Science is my god was right. Well, they didn't stop. So my stepdaughter shoved one of them off one of their play structures and did something similar to the other. Her father and I didn't support what she did, and we told her better ways to deal with a situation like that if it arises again. But with that being said, I'm happy she stuck up for herself, and in the end, if she feels like she needs to protect herself, then so be it. Even so, she got 2 days suspension for it. Her father and I told her she couldn't have any screen time or go out with her friends for those 2 days. She understood and took her consequence well. Okay, not to pause the story too much here, but it's moments like these where I feel like we should teach kids, when it comes to disciplinary actions like this, make them sign contracts. Yes, I understand the legal ramifications of that are just terrible, making kids sign contracts, but hear me out. These boys are committing sexual harassment. Yes, you can argue, oh, they're just immature, silly kids. Okay, sure. But they are agitating someone. The teacher's gotten involved, they've separated both sides, they've told them to stop. At that point, those boys should sign a little waiver that if they continue, any consequences to these actions are purely their own responsibility and their own fault. Like, okay, yes, still punish both sides because end of the day, she is the one who made the physical action to cause harm. But under no circumstances should these boys receive any pity, and if anything, should be treated equally as punishable. Anyway, dream world where I get to punish kids more aside. God, what is wrong with me? Her mother didn't think that was punishment enough. She wanted her grounded, no screen or social time, including extracurricular activities, until the end of the month. Her father and I agreed that that was way too harsh, and we told her that, but she kept insisting. Finally, my husband told her she could punish our daughter the way she wanted to when she got custody of her. And yeah, it's moments like this that make people a bit questionable in the story because the mother alleged that it was Jesse who said this, not the husband. But hey, this is a bit of a he said, well, she said, I guess. We had an appointment to get her haircut and dyed that weekend, and my stepdaughter's mother kept texting my husband to cancel it, but we didn't see a reason to. Her punishment was already over. So that's why when she went over to her mother's house, her mother hacked her hair off. She was so upset. Her father didn't let me get out of the car because I honestly didn't know what was going to come out of my mouth. I was so angry. She got into the car, and the poor girl just cried into my arms for about 15 minutes. I called the hair salon and begged them for another appointment. Thank goodness one of the girls there decided to stay hours past her scheduled shift to fix up Evie's hair. We told her she could do whatever she wanted, and she ended up getting a really cute pixie cut with some color. It ended up looking really cute, and she walked out of the salon with a smile, but I'm not going to lie, I still spent all night last night crying. I just can't come to terms with how scared and hurt Evie must have felt as her mom was doing this to her. I don't ever want to send her over there again. She's calling my husband, telling him that she expects him to drop off Evie back at her house after she gets up because this is her visitation weekend. I don't see how he could ever be expected to leave her there unsupervised again. Well, the reason I'm looking for advice here is because everyone in my personal life's opinions are skewed by my personal opinions. Past history, etc. Like, everyone here is objective. Debatable. My husband's ex-wife is making it out like this was just a consequence of her actions and I'm too soft and don't understand how mothering works since I don't have any kids of my own, which is true, I don't, but I'm currently 4 months pregnant and I've been taking care of Evie for years. Yeah, you're a parent. Yeah, that's how parenting works. I think what she did was horrible, and I still get shaky when I think about it. Can I please have some perspective on this situation from you all who aren't involved in it? And in case you're wondering, apparently a lot of comments were, she does clarify more as to what the punishment was exactly about. We made it very clear that what we were and were not punishing her for. Sticking up for yourself is always okay, and even using physical force to harm someone else is okay if you're sticking up for yourself. However, she did go a step further and assault one of the boys even after he was very clearly already down and no longer a threat. We want to make it clear to her that physical force is to be used only to protect yourself. Once the threat is gone, you should no longer hurt anyone, whether they deserve it or not. It is not up to my 12-year-old to decide what corporal punishment she should inflict on another 12-year-old. It is up to her to protect herself and get herself out of potentially dangerous situations, which she did, and she was not punished for that. She was punished for taking it a step further. And again, all of this was made clear to her, and she understood. I want to raise my stepdaughter to know what is self-defense and what is assault. I am very proud that she stuck up for herself, even prouder that she took it upon herself to do something about it when the teacher had supposedly dealt with it. What I am not proud of is her taking a large stick and hitting him in the face with it as he repeatedly begged her to stop. Jesus! Oh my god. Okay, so maybe I was also a little bit correct in what I was assuming was going on. Did he learn a lesson? Yes. Was the lesson already learned before she did that? Yes, absolutely. I am going to raise her to know how to walk the line between self-defense and felony. Honestly, great job to this stepmother here. It's this sort of lesson that's going to help protect her from being a woman who's genuinely protecting herself and others around her, versus some woman who thinks she can get away with anything just because she's a woman. You can't hit me. Like, all it takes is one person for her to stand up to who isn't going to tolerate that. Did speak to our daughter's therapist about this incident, and she agreed with our responding actions. Her therapist also spoke to Evie about the incident. Besides, it's not as though she was locked in a room those 2 days. The no screen time was a godsend. I took off of work to stay with her, and we gardened, hiked, and went pumpkin picking. We painted rocks and hid them near her friends' bus stops for them to find when they got out of school. I taught her how to knit, and she's now started a blanket for her future sister. We really enjoyed our time together. And on a final note, thankfully, Evie really loves her new haircut. She's definitely feeling herself this morning. Now, obviously, a lot of the comments are pretty much just in support of this woman. Very hard to come across as an a-hole with that sort of justification. And incidentally, someone did link the Bio Mom's post about this. Stepmom's response? None of that is surprising. She posts online a lot sometimes. Well, you could copy it for future legal actions. In terms of the next step here, people say that, have the husband tell the mum in writing that Evie is upset and it would be best to reschedule her time for another weekend when everyone has cooled off. Tell her you can discuss the details on Monday. Get her to agree in writing. Then address this with your attorney first thing next week. But if the mum won't agree in writing that Evie doesn't need to come over, you may want to file a police report. Otherwise, she can bring the custody order to the police, show that it is her custodial time, and ask them to help enforce the order because it is being violated by her husband, who can be held in contempt, even though the violation would be justified. An order is an order. Which kind of just makes this even scarier for Evie, I feel. It's like the race to get your bond back between the landlord and yourself. You gotta apply for it first, so you're not the one having to justify why you should keep it. And you can only imagine this haircut trauma, as this person points out in their comments, about how lifelong of an experience that can be stuck in your head. I'm an adult male who's insecure about his destined baldness. I can only imagine how a 12-year-old would feel about being forced into that sort of experience. Anyway, with that long note, let's end today's video there. Thank you, as always, for watching. It brings a smile on my face whenever I wake up in the morning and see your comments on a fresh new video. It's great. I genuinely thank you from the bottom of my heart for supporting this channel and me and all our stories we read together. Of course, much respect and love to the people who post these stories. Their suffering is our assurance that our lives maybe aren't as sucky as we think they are. Yep, that's a nice thing to talk about them. Anyway, you be good, drink some water, love your face, bye-bye.